Having a good farming spot can make a big difference and easily double or triple the amount of resources you get compared to random spots. To find those locations, you can look over a few things first to make the search easier. Having a group for the resource you need is not always possible, so I will cover both solo and squad farm. Farming in a team is the best option, of course, but farming solo has a few advantages. Enemies try to spawn out of line of sight. If many people look around, they might have to spawn further away. In this example, I farmed with 3 people. The enemies came from 3 sides and I got 3,600 kills in 30 minutes. Then I farmed on the same spot solo, same build, same method. The enemies also came from 3 sides and I got 4,300 kills in 30 minutes. From my experience, solo farm is almost as good as farming in a full squad, and I have farmed a lot. Enemies have different despawn times. Infested will despawn much faster than Grenier, for example. If there are a lot of enemies, they despawn even faster. However, I am not sure if that's just visually. If you farm in a squad, then you want to go against Grenier because of Necros. He can desecrate only 3 enemies per second. That is why it's good to have an additional Necros in the group and fight against enemies which despawn slowly. While Corpus have firepower and special units, they are rather low in numbers. Grenier are high in numbers, and Infested are high in numbers. They are fast and have no guns, which would make them ideal for farming, but at some point you would need a 3rd Necros to keep up with the corpses. If you fight against Grenier, you will have a bit less kills, but much more time for Necros to desecrate them. Overall, a good deal. Keep in mind that if you try to calculate the corpses Necros has to desecrate every second, that Cora does not kill a consistent amount of enemies per second. 10 enemies with 1 hit is not rare, which means Necros often has to deal with much more corpses than the average kills per second. If you farm solo, you will most likely use Cora, means you can go against Infested. This has 2 advantages. Lots of fast enemies, and they don't try to shoot you from far. Then we need a room where the enemies can come from at least 3 directions and have an easy path towards you. I thought the size of the room matters too, but that's not the case, at least in my testing. Because of Smeeta buffs, kills per minute or kills per hour is a good measurement to see if your room is good compared to others. More than 10,000 kills per hour or 166 per minute is good. If you use Magus Anomaly in a good room, you can easily reach 12,000 kills per hour. A little warning here. If you get close to 20,000 kills per hour, you might risk a trade ban for abnormal results. Small tip for Magus Anomaly. If you switch to your operator and back to fast and immediately use an ability, you get this weird bug where you cannot use any ability. Make sure to pause a bit before switching back to your frame. You can make quick transfers, but before the last transfer, you have to pause to avoid that bug. Now that we have Steel Path Relic missions, we have another way to get more resources on top of the regular boosters. Here is a good spot which I used a lot, so I have a good idea how much I can get, but that was before Steel Path Relics was a thing. Usually I get 10 to 12,000 kills in 1 hour, and around 10 to 15,000 nanospores per minute. I have tested this spot in a Steel Path Relic mission, which gives on top of the 100% Steel Path boost, a 25% affinity, credit, resource or resource drop chance boost, each rotation. This will continue to increase by 25% up to a cap of 200%. I had both boosters and resource drop chance blessing, a Smeeta and Chorus Dome augment. I made 12,000 kills in 1 hour, which is good but not outstanding for this spot. I was hoping for more since it's a Fisher mission. Despite the average kill count, I have made 1,200,000 nanospores in this hour, 20,000 per minute. That's a lot, even for this spot. I had 4 Smeeta buffs, 2 of them overlapped for about 40 seconds. With this amount of loot everywhere, you have to pay more attention to your minimap. I suggest to tap your map key to get the map overlay. This is not only good to see where the enemies come from, but also to check when you have to collect resources. Resources can despawn if there are too many of the same kind in that area. New resources will evict old resources. There are different tiers of resources, each of them have a different weight threshold. There are common, uncommon, rare, research and special resources, where special resources have their own timer, for example steel essence. Just make sure to collect more often if you farm in a Steel Path Fisher mission. Another good thing, in Steel Path Fisher missions you can get the corruption buff. If you don't have ranged weapons equipped, you get the buff for your Warframe fairly often. Also in theory you should get more affinity buffs from your Smeeta if you have only your melee equipped, because the reload buff is off the table. This is hard to proof of course. This is the build I use. Spectra Rage gives energy, and enemies inside its range will not attack you. The Ether daggers have a very good riven disposition, and the rivens for these daggers are cheap. A little summary: Grenier for group farming. Infested for solo farming. Necros can desecrate 3 enemies per second. Loot can disappear if there is too much in one room. Use Magus Anomaly. A good room must have an easy path for enemies and minimum 3 directions where the enemies can come from. Room size doesn't matter that much if the path is good. Do Steel Path Fisher if possible. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Ich kann sogar Deutsch sprechen. Guten Tag.